This week's special guest, Steve Beaupre, a Canadian First Nations boxing legend, a man who's helped a lot of people. We'll talk about recovery and residential schools. Joe Tilley Sports, coming up. Welcome to the program. Our special guest today, and we're excited to have him here, is from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. He fought as a flyweight, bantamweight, and featherweight, 6-time provincial champion, 8-time national champion. He was a bronze medalist at the North American Championships, bronze medalist at the Commonwealth Games. He made the 1984 Olympic team. He won 7 international medals for Canada. He's worked in addictions, health, and wellness in the Indigenous community since 1993. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program, Steve Beaupre. Steve, welcome. Good to have you here, my friend.
Well, good to be here, Joe. Good. Thanks for inviting me.
No, it's awesome that you're here. You know, you look at your amateur record: 110 wins, 21 losses. That's pretty impressive considering you were fighting some of the best in the world all the time, always traveling for Team Canada. Not bad at all.
Yeah. It was actually I had a little bit more than that, but yeah, it was traveled the world. Got to see. Went to every continent except for Africa, and I actually retired. And then they went to Africa when I retired, and so I just came out of retirement, but we didn't get to go to Africa. It was good. That was the better one because my last title I was sober, and yeah, that meant
Right.
a lot more to me when I won it sober, and yeah, it was just an amazing 2 years. Even though I didn't make it to at that time I was trying to make the '92 Olympic Games, and I lost out, and I was able to put it away, and then start learning about my culture, because that became more important about our Indigenous culture. So it was good.
Now, right. Well, we're going to talk about getting sober in a bit first, but before we do that, we're going to talk about your time with the Canadian team. I mean, you had some great fighters on that. There were some great fighters on that Canadian amateur team. I mean, this was the golden age for Canadian amateur boxing. No doubt about it. Tell us about some of those teams.
Yeah, because we came up through I came up with just after Willie DeWitt and Sean O'Sullivan. I fought on a couple cards with them in '83 and '84, and that Canada versus USA. So if Willie and Sean, some of the Nolans, that's what the Nolans. You probably know that some of them guys. And so yeah, the '80s teams was amazing. Asif Dar, Dan Sherry, Lennox Lewis was on that team. Howard Grant, Egerton Marcus, Brent Kozlowski there, and the Bulldog Olsen was on too. So amazing. And the guy over on the right was Billy Downey. If he could have went a long far if he would have turned pro. So I don't think he turned pro, Billy Downey. So, but he came from the Downey family out in Halifax. So yeah, there were some good fighters out there. But yeah, we were
Don Downey.
I always say Don Downey, yeah, his
yes.
Yeah, he actually Don coached us one. Yeah, his uncle he coached us one team we went, or a couple of times. Don came as a national coach, right? So he was part of that national coaching program, and he was on a few of our trips with us. So it was really good to travel, represent Canada.
I believe. I believe Don passed away. Actually, he and I were both silver medalists, bronze medalists at the '78 Nationals in Sept-Îles, Quebec. Yeah, he lost to the guy who Derek Hoyt.
Yeah, Derek Hoyt. Dwight Frazier's in here. I forgot Dwight Frazier.
Yes, Dwight.
Too. And Dan Sherry. Dan Sherry is in this picture also. Lennox Lewis.
Okay. 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 So, all right. So Steve is off. So let's go back to the picture for a sec, Vic. I want to just, we'll talk about that group of guys again. Here we go. So there's, yeah, Arnie Beam on the far right. That was Lennox's coach. And you've got Lennox in there, as well as Egerton Marcus, Asif Dar, Steve Beaupre, just to Arnie's right. Dominic Flane's in there, and of course Lennox. Um, Egerton Marcus. So you got some guys there who won medals at World Championships, medals at Commonwealth Games, medals at Pan Am Games. These guys were an awesome team, just an awesome, right through from, when Willie and Sean O'Sullivan came along in the early '80s, and then they went to the Olympics in '84, both won silver medals. Um, Dale Walters was one of the guys in those teams as well. Uh, Fantastic times for Canadian amateur boxing, and we were traveling around the world. Guys were, guys on that team were traveling all around the world, getting some tremendous exposure, tremendous experience, and it really paid off in a lot of medals at various events, a lot of championships. So those were definitely
I'm back. I don't know
the
if you can hear
golden
me.
era. Yeah, yeah, we can hear you, Steve. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, so anyway, good times, and I wanted to talk to you. Oops, looks like you're frozen again, Steve. I don't know what the might be a bad internet connection right where you are. Maybe if you can click off that feed and then click back on, we'll be
Okay.
able to have a better connection. All right, are you there? Is Steve there? Okay, he's going to disconnect and come back on. Okay, so listen, there's another picture that we had earlier, Vic, that with which a larger pic of the team. We'll go through some of those guys too. There it is. Okay, so the man in the middle, the older fellow, that's Adrian Teodorescu, and
Yeah.
anybody who followed boxing in Toronto, well, Ontario and Canada really knows who Adrian was. He was an amazing coach of a lot of those traveling teams for Canada, and he passed away a couple of years ago. Um, Really, really good coach. But look at that group of guys. I mean, I mean, you're talking about medal after medal after medal after medal. Steve, you're back with us.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay, we're just looking at, yeah, yeah, we can hear you fine. So we're just looking back at that picture of the larger picture of the team. So I want to go back to your career a little bit, and just how did you end up getting into boxing?
My dad introduced me to the sport. He was a boxer. He boxed out in Halifax when he was in the Navy, and so he took me to the gym. Hockey wasn't. I was too small for hockey, so we started boxing, and I loved it at the YMCA. I boxed out of the YMCA in Sault Ste. Marie, the Sioux YMCA, and yeah, that's where I started. I started with the Nolans, and I just slowly progressed. Right, I started 1979. I won. I went to my first nationals. I didn't go alone. I went with two of the Nolans, Tommy and Lenny Nolan, and went to my first nationals. And I won. I beat the favorite guy in my first fight, a guy from Nova Scotia, and then I lost in the semifinals. And it was just a string. I went to ten national championships in a row, and it was just an amazing run. I went to
Well,
12 national championships out of 14 years, so it was pretty good. Like I tried, we went all over Canada. Then we started traveling internationally when you make the national team. So yeah, so 1979 I won a bronze. 1980 I won a silver. 1981 I won a gold, and from 81 to 87 I won 7 gold medals. And then 88 I lost. I lost to Corey Burton, and yeah, because of my drinking, right? I always say that my drinking got in there, and I lost in '88 to make the '88 Olympic team was my drinking, and so I came out of retire. I sobered up in 1989, and I came out of retirement in 1990, and I won in 1991. One of the guys actually was in my weight class. He was the defending champion, Geronimo Bai. I don't know if you heard of Geronimo Bai, and he
no.
was 132 pounds, but the weight class was 119 pounds, and he says, "No way, I'm not making 119 pounds and try to fight you." He says, and we were really good friends. We came up through the nationals together, and so he fought Mike Strange, and he lost to Mike Strange in the finals at 125 pounds, and I won my eighth national title. It was the best because I was sober. It was
Right.
19 pounds. My third senior title, my third championship, like in three different weight classes. And I think there's only like five of us. I think Mike Strange is on that list. But yeah, to be in that company is amazing, right? To win three national championships, senior championships in three different weight classes. Because I won in 48 kilograms, 51, and 54 kilograms. So it was really, really,
Right.
really good. But yeah, my dad
Yeah.
got me into
Flyweight.
the sport, and
Yeah.
it just progressed. We fought a lot in the United States because we're a border town. So we fought the Kronk Gym. I fought everybody from the Kronk Gym. So and I started, the America. I always say the fighters made me better. We fought in Gray, Wisconsin. We fought in Michigan. We fought in Bay City, Michigan. Art Dorr and his team. The Art Dorr from the Tough Man contest. They started that, but and so we fought his team. I remember fighting his son, Tonto Dor, and beating him. So it was like those American fighters made me better. So
Well, it's
it
great
was
because
a fun.
yeah, you guys got fought some really good guys. Not just at Kronk Gym, but other parts of Michigan too. I mean, Dominic talks about the fact that he fought, Floyd Mayweather way back when,
Yep.
and
Yep.
so you guys get a chance to fight some really good fighters, and learn a lot. And like you talk about the team then and versus what we've got representing Canada now in the amateur ranks. And why were you guys so good? Why were those Canadian teams so strong?
I think it was the training, because like you said, Adrian came. Like I remember going to the Australian Games in 1985. It was a last minute trip in January, and I got called up, and I said, yeah. We just and Adrian, I think that was Adrian's first team because he was the only one that could go, right? That's such short notice, and he started just going on the teams, and just I don't know. It just we had some amazing talent back then, guys that had come up through the ranks, the juniors, the intermediates and the seniors, right? They went to at all levels of boxing, right? So it was really really good to see.
Now you talked about
What's up?
you talked about getting sober and how important that was to you to win a title when you were sober. Tell us how was drinking affecting your ability to box?
Well, in 1987, a lot of politics in the sport of boxing too. Like, yeah, there's part of that, but because I made the 87, I won and I actually made three Pan American Games teams: 1983, 87, and 91. I didn't go to any of the Pan American Games. Like I made three for Canada, right? So,
Hmm.
and I was ready to fight for try to fight for the United States because I was North American Indian. I could have fought for the United States. We were gonna fight for Sioux, Michigan. I lived at a border town, so we were talking to Joe Nolan from the Sioux, Michigan Boxing Club, and we were going to represent Sioux, Michigan, and we were going to do that, right? So, but just the politics, though. I had 1987 was challenged for my title by Corey Burton, and Corey was the 48 kilogram intermediate champion. So he should have. They always change the rules halfway through. He should have fought Scotty Olsen. He didn't want to fight Scotty, right? Scotty was probably a tough guy to beat back then in
Yeah.
1987, right? And so he beat me, and it was a 3-2 decision. Like a week before the challenge matches, they said I wasn't getting challenged, and then all of a sudden, like 3 days before, I'm getting challenged, and I had to make weight because I wasn't
Wow.
naturally at that weight. And so, and like when I won in 1991, there at 119, I was at natural weight. I walked around at 117. I didn't have to lose no weight, and that was a big thing, right? Losing the weight. So I was at the time I was walking around 117 and I had to come down to 112. So that's 5 pounds, but still it's a lot of weight for a small guy, right? So
Hmm.
I made the weight. I just barely made the weight, and I lost. So I fought him on a Friday night in Ottawa. I still remember this. And Chris Johnson, I always think Chris Johnson was there, and he was on the intermediate team, I think, and he won. He says you got robbed, and I lost a 3-2 split decision, right? So he has he had to beat me twice. So he came back on the Sunday and he beat me 5-0. I just was depleted. I had again I had to keep my weight down for the whole weekend, and so I just didn't fight as good as I fought in the first fight. And so that drinking, when I still remember, I lost. The drinking just escalated to then, right. But when I look chase back, it was part of that. What happened to me, my story, I guess, is the 60 scoop, right. I was adopted. I didn't know what it was. Like when I was 5 years old, my dad would say, "You're the first person here." The dad raised me, Jim Beaupre, and you're the first person here. But you go to school in grade 5, history books was Indian was a savage. Well, I didn't want to be a savage, right? So it was really hard on me. So then I remember that being my skin color was different than my brothers and sisters. They were white, and I was this brown color, right? And so I didn't know what it was to be an Indian, right? And so when I sobered up in 1989 through Alcoholics Anonymous, and then I was struggling though that first year. After I lost in the 88 trials, and again I didn't ever came back, and I blame it on my alcoholism, not making it to that one to the 88 Olympics. Corey Burton beat me, but then it's kind of politics, right? Like Corey didn't get to go to the Olympics because he didn't have any international experience. I had over 40 fights, so
Hmm.
I don't know. So it wasn't like it is now that they have the qualifying tournaments. I was like, wow, I could have done that. I would have had a chance, right, to make it. So I tried. I went away from the sport in 1988, and within 6 months I hit my bottom, and I drank a lot, and in 1989 I sobered up. I ended up in the hospital. I was in the intensive care for five days or 3 days, but 5 days total in the hospital. And I come out of there and I remember it was like around here, right around now, nice and sunny, May and April, around end of April, May up north, and it was. And I remember the sun just shining on me. I was like I gotta change my life, right? The alcoholism and so I went to see a counselor, and I had seen this counselor before. She was trying to help me with my relationship. This was a couple years before that, and so I knew her, and then she, lo and behold, she was in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. Everybody, I always think everybody's put in your path to help you, and she was in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I can't remember her name for the life of me. I just can't remember her name. And so she goes, "Do you want to go to an AA meeting?" And I said, "Yeah, okay, I'll go to an AA meeting." And that, if you would have told me to stand on my head, that's going to help me, I would have done it. Whatever you were going to tell me, I would have done. And so that's just the way I was, right? So then they they I went to that AA meeting, and for the first time, I felt I wasn't alone. Alcoholics Anonymous, but I still struggled. I struggled for the first year and a half. So I went to see another counselor. Go see this other counselor, and she was Indigenous. So I went, and she says, "You want to go to treatment?" I said, "Sure, I'll go to." Again, I was at that almost at that same point, like
Right.
standing on my. If you I told me to stand on my head, I would do it. Right? It's just to help me to get. And I didn't know about the pain that I was going through, that emotional pain. So then and boxing probably saved my life. Right? When I think of that, when I look back at my story, boxing saved my life. Working out, right? All that energy, right? Be at the gym, hitting the bag, right? Getting all that frustration. So I was a part of what we call the 60 scoop, and what's going on right now. My mom went to residential school, and it was putting back the pieces of the puzzle of my life slowly, right? In 1989. So in 1990, this lady, she says, "Do you want to go to to treatment. I said, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go. I'll go to treatment. And she goes, do you want to go to Indigenous? At that time it was Indian. She goes, I want an Indian treatment center up north. I said, yeah, okay. And I didn't know nothing about our culture, knew nothing about my identity, right? And so I went to Windemoggin Treatment Center up in Fort William Reserve. It's just outside Thunder Bay. And I remember taking the bus right at midnight, catching on the bus in Sault Ste. Marie and taking this bus, 10-hour drive, 10 hours at midnight. Or yeah. So, and I get into Thunder Bay and pick me up. They bring me to the, to the treatment center. It was beautiful. You see that mountain, and it was right, Lake Superior's right there. And, oh, it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful setting, treatment center. And so I go in there, and this guy's looking at my he's looking at my I guess my assessment. He says, "Geez, you're a year sober. What are you doing here, right?" And I was like, I thought they were going to kick me back and send me back on the bus back to Sault Ste. Marie. It's like, oh no, I said I need this. I need help. I don't know who the heck I am. And there I started to learn about me. Like, and this is no truth. I had won my sixth provincial title, and a week after the treatment center, I was going to go to the nationals. Right, that's out west. And so they let me train for that first week, and then I stopped training. I just got involved with my culture. I think we did 5 sweats. I learned so much, like the smudging, the praying. We were in a circle, the medicine wheel teachings, and I started to learn about our culture and what happened to our people with the 60 scoop, the residential school. My mom went to residential school. She went to Spanish residential school in Spanish, Ontario. That's how I ended up in Sault Ste. Marie, right? Spanish is halfway between the Sioux and Sudbury. My sister, my biological sister, she ended up in Ottawa. And I always think my reserve is Golden Lake First Nation, which is near Ottawa, Pembroke area. And so I always think my mom tried to make it home, but I think she lost her language. And in that residential school, you were like, what I've learned from the stories is that you were punished. So I always think she lost her language and she never made it back home. And she passed away in North Bay in 1988. And so, yeah, that's my mom right there. So in 1988, she passed away. And the things I picked up, it's just like little pieces, to my life. My uncle had also passed away, and so I cut out his obituary, and I could find out who the heck, like my cousins, or not my cousins. Yeah, my cousins. There were cousins that were in the obituary too, but just my family, right? So my uncle Russell had passed away, and I cut that out back home in Sault Ste. Marie. No, it wasn't my uncle Russell. It was another Jocko that had passed away, but I cut that out. I still have that in my wallet, and I carry that, and just the names, right? Just my uncles, my aunt, and so my mom, she passed away in 1988, January 31st, 1988. I got the when she passed away, I got the thing. She passed, so I carry that. And so right now we're trying to, like, even me and my wife, we're trying to find where she's buried. I don't know if she's buried back at the reserve. We haven't talked, but probably when everything opens up, we're trying to find out where she's buried to go pay our respects to my mom. Right. I think when I started learning about those teachings, that one first teaching when I was in treatment in Thunder Bay was that woman's teaching about women giving that life. Right. We all come from that woman. Those women create the people. So and that just started changing my thinking, that thinking there. And that's what we always say in recovery, is that thinking gets us in trouble, our thinking. So we have to change that to that good thinking. So I came back from that treatment center, and I started learning about our culture. I found this old man. His name was Peter O'Chase. And I started working with that old man. That old man, he was when he passed away, he was 113. I met him when he was 98.
Wow.
I was able to work with him for 15 years, And I just began to learn just a little bit of our culture because he had so much knowledge. And I traveled with him so many. Like I would go pick him up at the airport, and he'd tell me stories. I'd ask him a question. One question I remember asking him one question when I was going to see him at Trent University when he's at the Elders Conference, and he I asked him one question. I was there the whole night listening to teachings from one question. So you got to watch what you ask for, and because sometimes he would say that's a good question, and then he would start to tell me a story because our teachings are oral, and then I'd come out of there and I'd scratch my head and say, "What did I ask that old man?" And so I would come out of there, and the answer would come to me maybe a week later, maybe a month later. And I remember a year later, some questions that would come to me, and then like the answers, right? So it was pretty good. So when I come out of that treatment, I'll go back to when I come out of that treatment center. I came back and I went to the national championships in 1991, and they were surprised to see me there. I remember Geronimo Bai, like I said, he moved up in weight. He fought Mike Strange, and he says, I don't want to fight you because you." I said, and I was walking around 117 pounds, and I'd fight at 119, so I didn't have to lose no weight. I felt good, and I won those nationals. That was that. Like when I look back, that was my Olympics. Like that was to win that, right? Because my first or not actually not my first fight, my first international fight back, I fought a Russian, but then my second fight, I fought the two-time Olympic gold medalist Andreas Taves from Germany, and I stayed with them. To me, that was I knew I was there at that level, right, to stay with him, and I was like, damn, where's Scotty? I need some sparring with Scotty Olsen to get because yeah. So yeah, and I
yeah.
remember. I remember that, and like I knew that was my Olympics. Like you could, and I came back, and I was able to turn the page and close that book, I guess, in the sport of boxing. And I come out of retirement, and I fought professional just in my hometown for because just to say I fought professional, and I'm undefeated as a pro 2-0. So I always
Perfect.
brag about that. I'm undefeated as a pro 2-0. So
Yeah.
kind of like
I
Floyd
forgot to
Mayweather,
mention that in your
undefeated.
bio. Yeah.
So
There
yeah,
you go.
that's my first. There's my first pro fight when I fought a guy from Flint, Michigan, actually. And so yeah, and it's different when you fight professional. Everybody doesn't like they hear my name and they didn't want to fight me. We'd sign a contract, and then this guy would back out, and that guy would back out. It's like, oh my god. It wasn't like the
Right.
amateurs. When you showed up at tournaments, you fought everybody,
You
right?
were on.
So
Yeah.
it was whoever's there. They're still trying to win. Like you were fighting a guy. Maybe you had more experience. They're still trying to win. I remember fighting some guys from St. Catharines. They didn't have a whole lot of experience, but they were trying to win. So
Right.
it was
Now
a good
you.
ride.
Oh,
Go
there you
ahead.
are. Another. You were
That's
now
not.
you and Scotty. Sorry, that's like the Russian guy, or no? That's the guy who was the
That's
two-time
Commonwealth
Olympic.
Games. That's against John Lyons. He actually
Oh, John
fought
Lyons. John
uh,
Lyons from England, right?
yeah, yeah. The year in 1984, he fought Paul Gonzalez, and he lost Paul Gonzalez in a split decision at the Los Angeles Olympics, right? So, and I stayed with him. We fought actually in the Canada Cup, and I lost, and it was a brawl. We fought like 6 months before the Commonwealth Games, and I knocked him down. He knocked me down, and it was just a brawl. I lost a 3-2 decision, and so this fight, I thought, okay, it's going to be a brawl. It was a brawl, but I hurt my hand in the quarterfinals. I fought a guy from Scotland, and again, as you can see, they're not wearing the headgear, and man, they
Mm,
got some hard heads. Those British
yes.
fighters, and I hurt my hand, and like it was an amazing, I always think of Dom when he says, experience, just to enjoy the whole thing of going to games, right? The Commonwealth Games was amazing, and I enjoyed it. But yeah, I hurt my hand in the quarterfinals, and so when I fought the next fight, the first right hand I threw it right off his head, and he had no headgear on, and I heard it again. So it was like but I needed
Right on the
two good
knuckle. Yeah.
hands to fight John because he was just a strong fighter, a really really good fighter. But yeah, I lost a 5-0 in the semifinals, but I was happy with what I done. I,
Bronze
I
medal is
performed.
nice.
Yeah,
Yes, that's
yeah,
really good. Yeah,
bronze
something to
medal.
be proud of for
And
sure.
yeah,
Now, you and Scotty, you talked about that earlier. You guys had some absolute wars. So, listen to you guys talk and listen to you guys talk about. Um, I mean, you guys could have sold tickets for your sparring sessions. I mean, really, they
oh
were
yeah,
something else, right? You and the
oh
Bulldog.
yeah.
Yeah,
We would spar, and I would always because you learn against Scotty. You got to keep it in the center of the ring with him because he just had so much power, right? And he
for
was
his
quick,
size.
like he
Wow.
was
Yeah, yeah,
for his size. He was quick, right? And he come out with that right overhand, right? Boy, you get or the left hook. Oh my god! I think
yeah.
there's only two guys that knocked me down in training. Him with the left hook, and my brother. My brother said I just walked into a punch, and my brother he says I just could
On the
feel it. He
button.
says
Yeah,
yeah on the button, and I was down.
on the
I'm like
button.
yeah, it was just yeah. And he says
Yeah,
that was the
yeah.
perfect punch. But Scotty was good when I sparred with Scotty. Like when I went to training camp and we had some good sparring with other fighters too, like Steve Pagadam or Jamie Pagadam, some of those guys, even Downey there,
Right,
the kid there, he was good. He was good to
right.
spar with, and we would
Yeah,
always spar a little bit higher, like featherweights, and so we'd get that mix right. And we'd be sharper for tournaments, and then I would always do good at tournaments when I fought right. But
you
yeah,
had good
because my
sparring.
end of my career, I had no sparring. I had no sparring, and then the training camps were getting not as like they wouldn't have them as many, right? So we were the funding. I guess they're losing the funding, the
Hmm.
loss of funding.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
but
Well,
was an
oh, sorry.
amazing journey, right? I said when we
Yeah,
were.
and you
I always
talked
say
about
when we were kings. When we were
yes, when we were
kings, right?
kings, right? Canada's king for
So
sure. For
I
the
mean,
size of our
I mean,
country, the amount of fighters we turned out is unbelievable. Yeah.
yeah. Like I remember going to the Commonwealth Games, and at every part of our boxing team was you got picked for to go see people. We was in Scotland, so we were able to go see. I went to see the Queen and the Duke there. It was pretty. It was pretty good. It was pretty cool because we had we got to mingle with them and that, and I had
Wow.
lunch with them, so it was pretty neat.
Wow.
So
That's
I
awesome.
mean that's probably a highlight, and I have somewhere in my collection. I have like the little placing that says "Dinner with the Queen," right? So
Uh,
it's pretty
that
neat.
is
So
pretty awesome.
I remember that.
And
Go ahead.
you talked about your journey and how you the bottom you hit, and how in this little book here it talks about being the dark how dark it is before the dawn, right?
Yeah,
And how
yeah.
when you're looking back, you realize that all those were times when we sank really low, and
Hmm.
but we needed to go where we go in order to get to where we get to go. And for you be going to hitting that bottom and going through that tough time, and then now you discover your culture, you discover what you're all about, then you get into the addictions field. Tell us about what you're doing today working with addicts and alcoholics in the indigenous community.
So yeah, I've been like I think everything happens for a reason. Like Teddy said that Ted Nolan. I was listening to Ted Nolan prior to coming on today, and he inspired me. Just what he had done. So and his uncles coached me in that, and so when you look at where I come from, the addictions field, and I think everything happens for a reason. And so I went back. I was in an engineering field, and I was a shop foreman for a rigging supply company. And my one of my family members, my uncle or my dad's cousin, his wife was indigenous. She was from Red Rock First Nation, and she was starting up an indigenous program at Sioux College. And says, "Do you want to come to take this program?" And I had helped her. She had relapsed, and so I remember seeing him at the AA conferences, the North. I think it was the Northeastern A conference, one of the conferences, and so yeah, and I had connected with her, and I didn't know she was in Alcoholics Anonymous, and so then she said, "Do you want to come to this program? Start this program." So I quit my job, and I took a stab at this program, the addictions program, and I was sober a couple of years, and everything fell into place. Like totally, everything fell into place. Right, I went back to school, and I learned about really myself, my culture. Started beginning of that culture. I mean, began to learn it when I went to that treatment center, but then that was just the more. I started learning more. We brought in elders, and I started going to ceremonies. I met this old man when I started. I met this old man. He's from the mountains. His name was Peter O'Cheese, and he was an
Another
oral
Peter, yeah.
teacher because I could, yeah. So I didn't I couldn't write anything down. I had to, if I asked him a question, right, I would have to again, just I'd have to remember it orally, right? And so it was pretty neat that I started, and I worked with that old man for 15 years before he passed. He passed at 113, and he taught us about those ceremonies, how to do ceremony. And I worked. I was a scabeus, a help in the language. That's a helper. And so I think I'm a helper in the addictions field. That's what I am, a scabeus, a helper. Because I don't do the changing. They have to do the work, right? I'm just that guide. And so that was just like that lady that sent me to that treatment center. I remember, and I met her. I was like probably 10 years old at a conference that up in Sudbury, and a mental health conference. I said, you saved my life. She says, I didn't do anything. I just guided you. And I was just wanted to see a response. But yeah, those people, they're put in our past to help us on this journey. Right? That old man, he helped me. He was put on my path. That indigenous lady that helped me to go to treatment, right? And that helped me totally start to begin to look at my life, to put the pieces of my puzzle back together, right? Of my life, right? And so, and yeah, and the because you remember that gentleman that I lost to in
Oh yeah, Lions. You're talking
the
about the Comas
no
games?
no
Yeah.
no just get a little emotional
Oh,
here.
the Canadian.
Yeah, Corey Burton.
Yeah, yeah. Corey
Corey
Burton.
Burton.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you know, later I found out he took his own life. Right, he took his own life because he didn't make it to the Olympics in 1988. Like he won in '88. He had beat me, and or no, I never got a chance in '88 to fight him again. But he won, and he was able to. Yeah, I talked to his family a lot. I talked to his family after he had passed, and he took his own life, right? Because he didn't make it. Like I always think, because he didn't didn't make it to the Olympics. And I could identify with him because that's where I was. That dark place there, that dark place. I remember that, right, when I was drinking, and I ended up in the intensive care there. And so yeah, so it was yeah. So I'm fortunate to be alive now today, right? I always think of that, and those people that
We,
put
we
us in our path, right? And so and
right.
just things have opened up, right? I applied for a job down here first in Barrie, Ontario, at the Barrie Native Friendship Center. Or no, I applied for a job at an Nautic Healing Lodge, the assessment counselor, and I didn't get it. One of these, he's an elder now from Christian Island, Neil Meneg. He got that position, and so then I applied for the position at the Friendship Center, at the Barrie Native Friendship Center, the first healing and wellness coordinator. And so I got the position, and I was there for 6 months. I came down on July 1st, and it was amazing. And I had worked in First Nation communities prior to that, and I worked in a treatment center up in Blind River. It's called Benboapka now, but it was used to be called Anishinaabe Natamagega Mig Substance Abuse Treatment Center. I like to say that because I can say it in the language. It took me a while
Very
to
good.
say
Very
it.
good.
But so, and I've learned a lot. Like, so I had about 5 or 6 years of experience, and like when I came down this way, and so I was at the Friendship Center, and then I went to Anotic, and I was there for Anotic. I did two. I always say I did two tours of duty at Anotic. I was the program coordinator for I think around 10, 11 years, running the programs and that. And it was really, really good. I learned so much about helping others. Right, in order to help yourself or help others, you got to help yourself first. And so I was going through some stuff. I was going through a divorce, and I needed more healing. And so I was 13 years clean, and I went back to treatment. I went actually back to Native Horizons, and everything happens for a reason. I come back to I was working at an optic, and I looked at your mail slot. I look at my mail slot, and it's pulled it out, and it was Native Horizons, a 2-week relapse prevention program. I go, I'm going to go to this. I'm going to ask my boss, and she goes, yeah, sure, go ahead, do all the necessary paperwork to do it. And so I went to this Native Horizons, and it was beautiful. They helped me connect this with this, my heart.
Mm-hmm.
The hardest journey is 18 inches. Sometimes they say this. Elder told me this, Jean Aquash. She was that partner to that old man, Peter O'Cheese. And so, so I was able to do a lot of healing, more healing, and it was really, really good. Good, really good. They got me on the second day, and it was only a 2-week program, but oh man, it was just they take the 6-week program and put it into the 2-week program, and it was just amazing. So I was come out of there, and again, more learning, right? And that's what healing is learning about yourself and your family, your identity, and just putting the pieces back together. And in that when I started working with an optic, I got a call, and it was from my uncle. And I talked to my uncle a lot back on my biological uncle, my uncle Russell, and so Russell Jocko. And so I talked to him lots on the phone, and he talked about my sister, right, my biological sister. But I didn't know he had a really good relationship with him. I thought she was lost. She was in Ottawa. So then he had passed away, and I was working at an optic, and I asked my boss, can I go to the funeral? Yeah, go ahead. So I went up there, and I went up and was to Golden Lake First Nation, and then they usually have the wake and the funeral usually in the community center. So I went in the community center, and there was the body up at the front, my Uncle Russell, right? And so within 5 minutes, I was able to meet my sister, right?
Wow.
So, and I think my Uncle Russell, he was a born again Christian. I carry his Bible in my bundle. I have a bundle, my sacred bundle, and part of my bundle, I keep that Bible, right? That's special to me. So I think he was looking up, looking down at us, and really had that we met each other, right? And so it's hard to start that relationship because we lost that, right? I lost that relationship. I wasn't born with my sister, right? And so and so my family always thought, well, he's gonna disown us, but I didn't. That's my family. The family that I was raised with was the Beaupre family. And we were able to, just a couple of weeks ago, my mom just celebrated 80 years she was 80 years old. So she's 80 years old. And so I surprised her on the Zoom and that. And so it was really, really, really good. But, everything happens for reasons. Going back. And so, I come back and I started come back from that treatment center. And I started to really working with the program like Alcoholics Anonymous. And then the Red Road program, I always talked to this. I had an AA sponsor back home, and he passed away just a couple of weeks ago. He was made his journey to the spirit world. He was my sponsor. He had over 50 years, Peter M, and he was actually Ontario Federation of Indian Friendship Center elder. He did a lot of work with the Ontario Federation of Indian Friendship Centers, and so he had passed, and so I was able to be at his 50th birthday when he got his medallion for his 50th, and I had the beard, and he couldn't recognize me, right? Because I shook his hand, but I was up. We call it camp. We don't call it cottage. I was up at camp north of Sault Ste. Marie at Chippewa River, and I knew he was going to have his 50th birthday. This was about 3 years ago. And so I said, we surprised him. Me and my wife went. It was an open speaker meeting, and I was able to surprise him. And he was just thrilled to see me. But he helped me a lot. Like those people that are put in your place on this journey, right? And it could be coworkers, it could be people from AA, sometimes it could be even a stranger on the street that could, that makes an impact in your life and your journey, right? So, but it's been an
Right.
amazing journey of self-discovery. And yeah, in order to help others, you got to help yourself, right? And so I work with the Red Road program today, recovery program. So I'm working it every day, like so it's really, really good. Mamoe Wido Dakwin, I work with the primary healthcare team. And so, yeah, I worked at Anoptic like the second when I went back. My boss now that she recruited me back because they couldn't fire the concurrent disorders case manager. So I went back and I said, yeah. And I was working with the ACT team, North Simcoe ACT team with Canadian Mental Health. And I learned so much about mental health working with the ACT team. That's when you work with the most serious mental illness and you try to keep them at a hospital, I guess, because that's the most dollars is spent in the hospital. So, and I remember we were working with this one elder from Rama First Nation, and we didn't act fast enough, but we learned, right, when we saw the decline in healthcare, we were able to step in and help this individual, and it was a shorter stay the next time she went to hospital. So those things, and it's been just lifelong learning about recovery, right? And so it's been a journey. I've celebrated 32 years of sobriety. Had you told me 32 years ago I'd be sitting on a Zoom meeting talking about recovery? So this behind me, if you look behind me, my trophies, my plaques, what I've done in school, and just even I won a Premier Award for Sioux College. They're nominated for me for a Premier Award, and so yeah, just those things that only can happen because of recovery. But boxing helped me because when I think of that, and and I was struggling that first year, and I went to treatment, and when I come back, the discipline to train to work out, that's the thing I had that helped me with I made that discipline, right? When we train like when I look at the training, we train like madman. We were just mad. Like we trained at an elite level, right? And so I took
Right.
that discipline and I said, okay, I got to apply this to my recovery each and every day, right? And everything I do, I try to do that to give it 100%. So I mean that's what I thought. That was a picture of me coming when I came out of retirement and I won my eighth title. And my kids always tease me. My kids, they say, your eighth title was a myth. And I tell them, and then I tell them the story.
No.
They say, Dad, your eighth title was a myth. I tell them, no, that was the most important because I was clean and sober. And they've only seen me clean and sober, right? They haven't seen me when I was drinking, right? So, yeah, I've been on this journey for 32 years now, and it's just learning about ourselves, learning and piecing back the puzzle back to our lives, right? Like no lie, 1979, I went to the First Nationals, right? When we were out there, I went to train. We had a training camp. It was the Ontario team, beautiful Ontario team. I should have sent that picture of the Ontario team, and because yeah, I should have sent that one. But we went out to Regina, and so in we in so one day they like halfway between training camp they're going to take us to this reserve, and I don't know too much about reserves. I remember back home Garden River, Rankin, but I don't know too much about the reserves. Remember that lady I told you about? She was married to my dad's cousin. She would take me to the powwows and that, but I didn't really get into that. I didn't even understand it. Well, I know why I didn't get into it because I didn't want to identify being as Indian, right?
Mm-hmm.
I always say I always tried to look Italian. I lived in the west end of Sault
Mm-hmm.
Ste. Marie, and but the closest I got to being Italian is my three brother-in-laws, Aldo, Tilley, and Verona. That's the closest I got to being Italian. But it's that identity, right? Who am I? Who am I? Where am I going, right? And so I didn't know who I was. So looking back, it was a journey of self discovery, right? And so
Right. The
and
the journey from here to here, that 18-inch journey, right?
yeah,
And
that eight.
and you
So
discover who you are, and yeah, go ahead. Sorry, finish. Mhm.
So the my core issue was my abandonment. When I look back at my core issue was my abandonment with my mother, right? And I was able to resolve my feelings with my mother, and man, it must have been tough for her. You know, her baby taken, two of her babies, my sister taken away. My sister was nine years older than me. I met her like at my uncle's funeral of all places, and so just the pain that she must have went through, right? And then I that's my mother there, and my biological mother. And so then when I think of that, like my uncle would tell me that they would separate the males and the females, right? So he says, I don't even know your mother. We didn't even grow up together. We were in the same residential school, Spanish residential school, but they segregated the males and the females. So he didn't even get to know her. So it was heartwarming, right? Like when I think of that, and I told that to my family last week, right? I was able to, like we were raised together, right? We were able to, come home and see each other, right? We went to the same school,
Mhm.
right? My older sister would be the one to guide us through the high school and stuff like that, right? So, but it was an amazing, it's amazing journey of that, from that head to that heart, right? To learn about the abandonment, my losses,
Right.
and
And
the loss of culture, loss of language, loss of identity, right? Loss of family, all of that. Those are it's multi-generational trauma, we call it now. Jane Milton
right.
Moss, one of our teachers, one of our main teachers, she calls that multi-generational trauma. And so at first it was that shame and guilt, but now I can see that they've labeled that trauma. So what are you going to say?
Right. Well, I was going to say that now you posted this on your Facebook site, so I picked it off of there.
Sure.
It's a video from the Honorable Murray Sinclair, former senator who led the residential schools Truth and Reconciliation Commission a few years ago. And I'm going to ask Vic, our producer, to play that now because I think it explains
Prime
what we're
Minister
talking
of the
about.
day, Sir John A. Macdonald, led the way, but he was assisted in his public leadership by others. Egerton Ryerson, who had developed a proposal about public schools, himself said that public schools should be available for the little white children of the settlements and the colonies because the indigenous children were not smart enough, that they were inferior and couldn't be educated in the same way and would not be eligible to become leaders in Canadian society because they were so uncivilized and heathens and savages. But the stories from the survivors proved to be pretty horrendous. And one of the most common stories that we heard were from survivors who talked about the children who died in the schools and whose deaths they witnessed. We heard about children who died from accidents, children who died from beatings, children who died when they ran away and never returned. We heard about some of the children who even took their own lives. We heard about children who deliberately burned down the schools and in that way caused the deaths of children in the schools. And we heard about, of course, the abuses they experienced. We heard about the day-to-day violence that they experienced. But just as often, for every single one of them, we heard about the loneliness. We heard about the separation from their family. We heard about how they lost so much.
A friend of mine, the late Cliff Stanley, standing Buffalo Warrior, he wrote a book about his experiences in residential school. He was sober a long time, a
Mhm.
good friend in recovery. The book was called Children of the Creator, and it was a great
Yeah.
book. And it I read the book. Cliff really painted a real clear picture of what it was like growing up in residential school. And
Mhm.
it's inhumane. It's just all it is completely. I mean, the only word I can think of to describe it is inhumane. And like this is, and he and Senator Murray did a really good job there. Murray Sinclair did a good job of explaining and outlining some of the effects of that. But tell me, how does that affect you as someone from the Indigenous community? How does that affect the people you know? What is the outlying effect of that?
Yeah, we're dealing with that right now. The effects of that, like the what's happening with Kamloops, right? The
Hmm.
bodies found, and we knew. I was a teacher at Georgian College. I taught in the Native Community Social Development Program for almost 14 years. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, 14 years. So when we look at that, right, I remember one of my students, her mother went to residential school at 3 years of age out in Saskatchewan. And I had the documents. I would show the students, and she was actually fortunate. The mother was, she came to my class and spoke, like, as 3 years of age, like that's just like I just can't think of it. My 3-year-old going to a residential school, and my residential school that my mother went to was Spanish, and my reserve is Golden Lake. So chances of my mom and my uncles and my aunts coming home for the breaks and that, it probably didn't happen. Like I think we had
Hmm.
in my family, I think there was five of us, like five uncles and aunts, right, in the family, or five or six, and I don't think they made it home. Like I just, and I remember I know everything happens for a reason. I remember being at Anishinaabe Health one time, and I could hear them over speaking about this guy Jocko, and he was homeless, and he had passed away. He had just passed away. They were like,
Hmm.
I know they were probably breaching confidential, but he was passed away, right? But they
Hmm.
remember talking, and that was my uncle he was talking about, right? And I
Hmm.
went back home. I looked at that little article that I pulled out of the paper, and that was my uncle. I was like, wow, he made it he didn't make it back home. He made it Skid Row in Toronto, right? And so lots of our people, that's a lot of our people, out west, like in Winnipeg, a lot of us homeless, they turned to the alcohol and drugs, right, to cope with what happened at the residential school. And it was horror. It was a horror, right? So, and what I learned, from my uncle, my mother went through a lot. Like she was sexually abused, physically abused. Like he was sexually abused, physically abused. He was able to find. He was sobered up and he found Christianity. But I'm not gonna knock that. But that's what that saved him, right? Saved his life. So he had a better quality of life the second half of his life. But yeah, a lot of our people are lost, and that's what the nature. I guess working in this field, I'm able to help those people with that to find them. I'm just a guide, a skabeos, a helper. In our language, we call it skabeos, right? Just like I was a helper to that old man, Peter O'Cheese. I worked helped him with the ceremonies. So now I just help people try to find that easier, softer way to find recovery, right? And to go back and find that identity, so that they have identity. Like I always say, Alcoholics Anonymous saved my life, but my culture gave me back my identity, right? So I mean, I know who I am today. I know where I'm going. I got that vision for the future, right? And so yeah, it's been a journey. So yeah.
It's a journey, yeah, that journey, and it's being able to find out who you are, and then you can be comfortable in your own skin. The feeling of abandonment leaves, and you feel like a whole person. And it's a journey. We'd like to just give this to everybody, right? Everybody would love to give this journey away,
Oh yeah.
but it's something you have to just do it yourself and experience it, right? The 215 children in Kamloops. Yesterday, Premier Ford announced that he's going to, spend $10 million to yeah, and make sure that it's handled by the Indigenous community. I mean, you and I know that working a program of recovery includes making amends. When we make amends, it's
Yeah.
good for us to make amends. When we receive amends, it's good for us to receive amends. It's healing.
Mhm.
It produces a healing effect. How do we possibly make this right?
Um, that's a big question. I mean, we have to, yeah. I mean, that's going to be a tough one, you know. The acknowledgements. I like watching, like now, like when you go to meetings and people are acknowledging the land, right? That's really, really good. That's a start. Acknowledging the land where they're on like wherever they're. they're having meetings and that, and so I think that's a start. But yeah, we need to work together. And the old man, that's what the old man taught us. I think that's the biggest thing that Peter taught us was to work together. And he says all races need to work together. We got to work from those four directions, right? Even if we're yellow, red, black, or white, we got to work together. We got to save Mother Earth, right? She's not well right now, right? And so maybe with this little shutdown, the Earth the Mother Earth is healing herself, right? And so we know when I have a fever, right? I'm hot. That's a global warming. That's what she's not well, right? And those things happen.
Right.
Those tsunamis. Those she's purging, right? All those things that the earthquakes, all those things, they're happening for a reason. And that old man, he always talked about that. He would explain it, and the way he explained it, it made so much sense, right? We work with the land. We work with our mother. We call it Shkokmekwe, Mother Earth. We got to go back and work with our land, work with our mother, right? We can't desecrate her, right? We gotta work with her mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Those four aspects of self, right? Like I said, that culture gave me that spirituality and that, but they're all connected, right? And so the medicine wheel tells me that, right? And it starts with myself, my family, my community. So they have to like the government has to, put initiatives in place that are driven by the community, right? From the First Nation communities, and that I think that's what works is when the with the community, you don't tell them what to do. You guide them, so they come up with that what programs work. And I remember when I think of that, I think of Hollow Water, right? Hollow Water. I remember this one family. It was 100% alcoholism in that community, right? To
Mm-hmm.
this day, this now it's like
Alkali Lake.
95% Alkali Lake, yeah.
Alkali
And I
Lake.
don't know if you know the Alkali Lake story, right? And they did it
Yes.
themselves, right? They
Right.
did it themselves, and that. So yeah, just I mean, you got to work closely, but I mean, apologies good, but you got to do some, you got to do some stuff. You got to work. I guess we have to walk side by side on that road. That just like that two.
Right.
I know with the Haudenosaunee, they talk about that two road wampum. I know Kevin Deary always talked about that. We got to walk together, right? Side by side
Right.
as equal, right? And
Right.
so in the decision making. So I mean, we got
Well,
it's coming. It's coming. I've seen a lot of change, but we got a lot of work to
yeah.
do. Like just uncovering. We knew there was like for me is when I think of back home in Sault Ste. Marie, Shinwalk, at the back of Shinwalk, which is Algoma University now, you'll see unmarked graves of residential school survivors. We know that. Like I was wondering, I was surprised that people didn't know this, and we got to get this education back into the schools, so the right
Mm.
education, what happened to our people, right? So every chance I got, like when I was working at an optic, every chance I got, if I got to go into the high schools, to the grade schools, I would bring my bundle, my sacred bundle, and show them and teach them just a little bit, right, about our culture, what our people are all about, right? And every community is different, right? Every community different, so but it's
But
lifelong learning.
yellow, white,
The
red,
red.
black, whatever. We're all God's
Mm,
kids. We
yeah,
can't
yeah,
hurt each other without hurting ourselves. We are
yeah.
connected. We are all connected, and we can't. And when we start understanding that at a deeper level, then we start helping each other instead of hurting each other. And
Hmm.
that's the connection that we absolutely need to have. I have a First Nations poem that I want to share. It's called "The Web of Life," and I think Vic has a copy of it up there for us. It says, "Teach your children what we have taught our children, that the earth is our mother. Whatever befalls
Yeah,
the earth befalls the sons and the daughters of the earth. If men spit upon the ground, they spit upon themselves. This we know. The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth. This we know. All things are connected like the blood that unites one family. All things are connected. Whatever befalls the earth befalls the sons and daughters of the earth. We did not weave the web of life. We are merely a strand in it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. By Chief Seattle. And I just stumbled upon that poem on the internet, and I just thought, wow, this is so appropriate to what we're talking about, to what we're going through, and This is really good. Steve, I know we're going to close our little segment here with a chance to celebrate each other and honor each other. And you're going to take us out with a traditional song.
So, a while back, I used to, when I worked at the treatment center in Blind River, I would leave in the morning before that sun came up, and I would see the sun come up every morning. I would, because I lived in Sault Ste. Marie, and I was drive to Blind River, Ontario, an hour and a half away. So, but this song was coming to me. I was starting to follow culture, and so I sang this song in the first time in the Sweat Lodge at my good friend Brian Jones. He's in the spirit world today, but he's a helper. He was an amazing helper, and so I sang that first time in the in the Sweat Lodge, and so this song talks about my first name, Wawa Say Nini Loon Man. That this Ross Loon gave me that first name. My Indian name is my other name that I carry that old man gave me was Kapapa Moewean Gadishnikas, and that means sounding feather on the sky. And my clan is Golden Eagle Gainu, and I come from the Pikwaknik and Donjaba, which is the beautiful hilly country covered in evergreens, or the Algonquins of Golden Lake First Nation. So the song would come to me every morning. I would just when the sun was coming up, I would stop and put down my tobacco. There's one place, this river that was flowing into Lake Huron Lake Huron. It was actually St. Mary's River, I think, or Lake Huron, but fed Lake Huron. So I would put my tobacco down in that little river, and so this song came to me, and it's a healing song. It's about that loon, and that was my first name. It was Wawa Say Nini. It was given to me, Loon Man. So this song's about the loon. Okay, so I'm gonna only sing it 3 times because we're not in ceremony. So, but I'll try. Okay. Wawa say chinenum, Wawa say chinenum, Miigwech is thank you in the language, so I don't know how that sounded, but yeah, that was the first song that came to me when I was driving, and yeah, I would always sing it in the Sweat Lodge. It's a healing song, and I sang it for that old man, and he loved it. And I said, "Sing that song, get your song." So when we're in ceremony, so miigwech.
Beautiful. Steve, listen, I want to thank you for so much for being on the show today. This was just beautiful and amazing experience for me, and I want to thank you. It's awesome. You're a tremendous, I guess, elder now, and the work you do is incredible, and keep doing it, and keep doing what you're doing, and I think we can all do a little bit, and we all help a little bit. And we all get a little bit better, and Mother Earth is better for it, right?
Yeah.
So
work together.
All right, we'll have more.
We're
all in it together for sure, which ties into our little commercial. But thank you so much, and we'll have more when we come back. Thank you, Steve. Steve Beaupre.
Okay. Promotional consideration provided by ClubLink. ClubLink. One membership, more golf.
Slow play. It's a slippery slope. First you go looking for that lost ball, and then everything goes sideways. There are a lot of golfers on the course. Make certain of your point of entry, look quickly, and move on. Remember, we're here for a good time, not a long time. Find anything, Bob?
Not yet.
Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center, saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. Joe Tilley Sports is brought to you by COSA, Central Ontario Standardbred Association, providing a united voice for harness horse people racing at Ontario tracks. Check out your benefits today at COSAonline.com and check out COSA TV on Facebook and YouTube for all the latest harness news and live action updates. Live racing year-round. Go to hpibet.com for all your wagering options. Become a member today, and your first bet is free. That's hpibet.com.
All right, time now for my COSA Swiss pick of the week. Last week I went to Yonkers Raceway in New York. Big mistake. 7th race, a pace for fillies and mares. I took the 2-horse Jive Dancer. This horse had a great trip with cover, but in the end, the best horse was clearly a G is Surreal with Scott Zeron in the buggy. The 2-5 favorite caught Feeling Red Hot at the wire. This week, well, we're going to go back on this side of the border, and I'm going to go to Mohawk for Thursday night 6th race for fillies and mares. Anna Molina with Sylvain Filion driving for trainer Richard Moreau, her season debut after a couple of good preps. My record on the year is now 5 wins, 2 seconds, 2 thirds, 4 fourths, 2 fifths, 2 eighths, and a 10th. For all the racing updates, visit COSA TV on Facebook and go to hpibet.com for your wagering options. Well, after a loss in the opener, we shouldn't really write off the Habs yet, but there is a lot to like about the Golden Knights. They can bang, they got skill, they got clutch goaltending. It would be nice to see this series go 6 or 7 games, but I think Vegas has got it. The Bolts bounced back against the Islanders, and that's another potentially terrific series. Well, the Phoenix Suns are off to the NBA's conference finals, but everything else is up in the air, including Chris Paul, the Suns guard who has entered COVID protocol. He may have to miss the Western Final. We'll see how that unfolds. Not sure what the protocol is for him yet at this point. Depends on whether he had the vaccine or not. Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers have clawed back, although Leonard has a knee injury and he's going to miss Game 5. He might have to miss the entire series, which would be curtains, of course, for the Clippers. The Bucks, well, they blew a big lead in Game 5. KD was massive, 49 points, 17 rebounds, 10 assists. Kyrie Irving has a sprained ankle. He's questionable for Game 6. We'll see how that unfolds for them as well. To the surprise of no one, Vlad Guerrero Jr. is a top vote getter among not only first basemen, but for all players for the upcoming All-Star game. He is number 1 among all players. Or why not? Vladdy continues to turn our heads. The young Jays first baseman set a club record on the weekend when he whacked his 20th homer of the season in just his 62nd game of the year. That's the fastest in club history, and he's still whacking them. If Vlad can keep this up, he's going to be the youngest Jay to win the MVP award. By the way, George Springer's about to start a rehab stint in the minors. Things are looking up, although they got to do something about that bullpen. It's U.S. Open week, and I've got Jordan Spieth, Brooks Koepka, and Bryson DeChambeau in the pool, only because I want to see Koepka and DeChambeau coming down the fairway on 18, playing in the final twosome. That would be awesome. Jason Kokrak and Corey Connors are my long shots. Now, wouldn't that be something that Garrett Higo was in the hunt in this weekend? The young South African won his first PGA event on the weekend. Only his second PGA event entered, and he wins it, the Palmetto Championship, which was a replacement, by the way, for the RBC Canadian Open, which had to be scrapped on this side of the border. Canada has made it to the final stage of qualifying for the 2022 World Cup of Soccer, being the first time since the mid-'80s. A 3-0 win over Haiti gives the Canadian side a 4-0 win in aggregate. If they make the top three at next month's CONCACAF Gold Cup, they are on to the World Cup. We close with a look at the folks who make this show possible. These are friends, trusted business associates, and all-around great people. I highly recommend them all. A reminder that the show is available on the Spanglish Network, Zingo TV, and the Fired Up Network. Thanks once again to Steve Beaupre for being on the show, for sharing his experience and his culture with us. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week when Scott Oak drops by. Another awesome story of recovery for you, and we'll see you then.
Get Aldo at Remax Crossroads. Do you want to buy or sell a home? Could 31 years of real estate experience help you? Why not speak to an amazing team that loves to overpromise and overdeliver? Call 416-GET-ALDO or visit www.getaldo.com to find out what next-level real estate looks like. RS Demolition and Excavation has extensive experience with complete teardowns and interior strip-outs. Looking to build a custom home? RS Excavating Services has the experience you need to build in established neighborhoods. For the highest level of quality and cost-efficient results, we provide innovative demolition solutions completed on time and on budget while ensuring our number one priority, safety. Call 647-852-3006 for an estimate or visit rsdemolition.ca. Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in their early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today, and let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678. Gold Line Resources, discovering high-grade gold in Sweden. Gold Line Resources owns a prospective portfolio of 4 high-grade gold exploration projects located on the Gold Line mineral belt of north-central Sweden, and 1 gold exploration project in the Skellefteå belt of north-central Sweden. For more information on how you can invest in this new initiative, go to goldlineresources.com or call 1-800-858-9710. Gold Line Resources can also be found on the TSX Ventures Exchange as GLDL. Looking for an advantage in choosing your investment options? Belmont Venture Capital will provide you with the best up-to-date opportunities in the mid-cap and junior sector. The company was formed 12 and a half years ago and is spearheaded by 2 seasoned veterans of the financial markets with over 80 years combined experience. Go to BelmontVentureCapital.com today for the latest hot picks on the market. And don't forget to sign up for the newsletter. BelmontVentureCapital.com. Brought to you by MNP, one of Canada's leaders in national accounting as well as tax and business consulting. We proudly serve and respond to the needs of clients in the private, public, and not-for-profit sectors. Through partner-led engagements, we provide a collaborative, cost-effective approach to doing business and personalized strategies, helping people and organizations succeed across the country and around the world. Call MNP's Durham office today, 905-579-5531, or go to mnp.ca.